Hello and welcome to my own video on my opinions on Grid Autosport. So, I've been playing this game a fair amount since I got it about a week ago, and really it's, in my opinion, probably one of the better racing games I've played recently, so I thought I'd share my views on it over some gameplay. Obviously this isn't recorded live because it's very hard to drive a car at speed with a gaming wheel and talk, so it's just pre-recorded footage I have. It's just a few races I managed to film. Also, because this is the first video I'm uploading in a while, this will be with the YouTube's new 60 FPS thing, so we'll see how that looks, because from what I've seen so far they're not really 60 FPS, they look more like 40. So this is, the recording itself is at 60, and it'd be interesting to see what it actually looks like. So here you can see me driving a Formula 3 car, open wheel. I'll talk more about that. Around, I believe it's one of the Nürburgring circuits in Germany, in career mode. So first sort of topic is going to be settings and graphics and optimization for PC. Because obviously I only play on PC. That's why the graphics are so good and the game looks really pretty, because this is a pretty good looking game as well. So you have a big, huge choice of settings in this game. You have all usual, anti-aliasing, good resolution settings, shadows, particles, everything's there really. I haven't seen much missing, and from what I've also heard from people, it works pretty well on, lesser systems. You don't need a extremely powerful graphics card and for this to work. Here I'm recording at 1080p, obviously not 1440, that's my monitor, and I'm getting 60 FPS solid. With VSync off at 1440p I get around 100 FPS. Now I have an overclocked NVIDIA 780 Ti, so that probably does contribute to that, but really if you're running this on anything that's sort of above the level of like an NVIDIA 750 Ti, you're not going to have trouble maxing this game out at 1080p. It's optimized pretty damn well, and as you can see, as I said, it's a very pretty game. Damage is very realistic in cars, and everything gets mangled up pretty well. Feeling of speed is good as well. Circuits, well textured, cars are well textured. Now the only problem I really have with the cars is the cockpit view, and that'll be demonstrated later on in one of the other races, because I'm sort of scrolling through the views, and really the cockpit view is probably one of the worst I've seen in any game so far, because it's all blurred out and pretty horrible to look at. So that's something, I don't know why they sort of excluded that. I mean, it's there, but it doesn't look very good. Now unlike Grid 2, which didn't have a cockpit view, at least at first I think, I stopped playing it pretty quickly, I didn't enjoy that game at all. This at least has one, but I prefer racing in general from a view that I can actually see the road better, the track. So for example, this view, I have a high position, I can see the bends. It's easier for me to see because I'm not using a racing line in any of my races. Even if I don't know the tracks, I don't use a racing line. It's good to see, at the right, at the left you see braking points, that turn there, so I just prefer this view. Yeah, so graphics, as I said, excellent. So now, the game modes for Autosport. So you have career, which is really the main mode. Now in career you have seasons and different racing, let's say, disciplines. That was a horrible term. And you have things like touring, open wheel, drift. Open wheel is basically Formula 3 2 cars. This is endurance, what you can see now, and I think it's the most flawed of all the different racing disciplines, because even though it's endurance, it only lasts 8 minutes a race, which is strange. And if you look at the bottom right, you can see those little boxes in green. Now that's your tyre wear. So what they tried to do is they tried to make you balance your tyre wear and how fast you're going, but really it's slightly flawed because first of all the simulation is it's not ideal. 8 minutes is a bit short even for a racing game. Remember, the first grid would have 24-minute races for 24 hours of Le Mans, so 24 minutes for Le Mans. Here it's only 8 minutes, so there's no really long race life so far, I've found at least. And I mean, I don't know, the career mode isn't anything special, but it's pretty fun to race in. You're joining teams every season, which in itself is annoying in that you can't actually own the cars. That's only for multiplayer. So I guess it's fun, but really I don't really see why you'd play this game to care about the career area. You're playing this game to race at the end of the day, and that's why I'm playing it. I couldn't care less about what team I'm joining or whatever. I just take the team which give you the most XP for that season and race for them. My favourite disciplines, I would say, are touring, not endurance, touring, open wheel, and maybe street. Actually, street's quite good as well. So yeah, I mean that's a career, and it's nothing special really, but the racing's fun. So. Now cars, there's a very, very wide selection of cars. I mean, you have your touring cars, which there's different categories. So you've got category C and things like that, which are just Ford Focuses, and you got Mercedes C63 AMGs. You have a lot just for that category alone. Then you have open wheel, which includes things like Formula C cars or Formula 3 cars, Formula 2. I don't believe there's a Formula 1 car. There's something very close to Formula 1 car, but there isn't quite a Formula 1. But then again, if you want to play that, just play F1 by Codemasters, which is an excellent Formula 1 simulator. It's absolutely awesome. All the cars are modeled very well, apart from the inside, of course, as I said. Again, they all look quite nice, and the handling of the cars themselves, I'll get onto that later, but it's pretty good. Actually, let's talk about it now. Alright, basically, think of it like this. At one end you have arcadey racing games, right? So, for example, let's see, Need for Speed, okay? Most Need for Speed games, apart from Shift, I think, that was quite a simulator, wasn't it? Sort of, that's arcadey, and then if you imagine Formula 1, the games by Codemasters, they're based on simulators, they're very accurate physics, and even Assetto Corsa as well. This is, if you think 0 being arcade and 100 being simulator, I'd say this is about 80. So there is a slight arcadey aspect, but I turn off everything except from ABS, right? No traction control, as you can see, no racing line, and if you go into a turn too quickly with a powerful car, you're gonna spin out, right? Now, if I was in cockpit view, right there, I almost spinned out. If I was in cockpit view, you could see me, really battling with the wheel, trying not to spin, because it's very easy, Like, in any turn, if you go in full throttle, you're definitely spinning out without traction control. And traction control does make this game easier, but then there's no challenge, which is the entire point of a racing game. Especially a simulator. I don't see why you'd play a simulator if not for the challenge. So, really, if you just want to go fast and have fun, play Need for Speed, or games like Grid 2, which I think, again, it was flawed because of the whole aspect of, you have racetracks, but the driving isn't realistic, so what's the fun in that? And obviously, as I said, I'm playing this with a gaming wheel, an F430 Thrustmaster thing, which is really nice in that it gives you force feedback. So the wheel feels heavy when you're going over the apex of the corners and the little lines at the side. I'm not sure what they're called, like this one right here. You can feel the vibration of the wheel. It's a very fun wheel to play. And really, if you're gonna play a racing game, you should use a gaming wheel. I mean, sure, Xbox 360 pads are okay, but ultimately, gaming wheels much more fun to play with. Difficulty, if you set it on hard, don't expect to come first very often, is what I'm saying, because in most of these races there's qualifying. If you do well in qualifying and you end up being first on the grid, you'll hold your position, you know. But if you're sort of in the middle, from my experience, and I'm not the most amazing driver, I admit that, you know, really what you can expect is, say you start last, okay, sort of if you're on hard, you'll come maybe 7th or 6th with really good driving. That's what I tend to be. If I start in the middle of the pack, I'll usually end up first with pretty good driving. This isn't the best example of my driving, so just bear that in mind, okay? Overall, if you put it on easy or normal, you're not going to struggle too much. But then again, this is a simulator. I say crank up the difficulty, learn to drive well, and ultimately the reward for winning a race on hard or extreme is awesome. You know, when you win a race at that difficulty, you feel like a boss. But it does take time to learn how the cars handle and the racetracks. Because right here I'm racing in a touring car, which is one of the fastest cars in the game, and I've never raced it before. This is on Spa. I know the Spa's a racetrack, but it's just I struggle with the limits of grip with this car. Every car obviously handles differently. This one is especially difficult to handle because you give it too much gas and you're off. You know, you're going to be spinning all over the place. So it's in that sense there is a lot to learn in this game, and there's a lot of gameplay to do. You know, if you're a fan of racing games, you know, this could give you 50 hours plus of good, solid, not too repetitive gameplay. So again, that's what I really like about this. So yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about control suggestions as well, because gaming wheel setups vary for different games if using a gaming wheel. I haven't really had much trouble. Now, the only sort of issue I had, it was minor, is that I had to update my gaming wheel drivers to support this game, because at first I plugged my gaming wheel in, fired up Autosport, and it wouldn't work properly. Like the wheel would just, my wheel would be centered, but the wheel in the car would be fully turned left. You know, full lock, steering lock. So that was annoying. But then I sorted that out by just, you know, getting the drivers, and it was fine since then. And really, with the normal settings, it works fine. For example, when I was playing F1 2012, I thought, was it 2013? I'm not sure. They're all pretty similar, you know. My problem with that game was that the steering settings were very, very flawed. Like, they wouldn't, like, there's things like steering linearity and all that stuff. I had to really fiddle around with that for a long time till I got a good feel to the wheel. But for me, you know, the standard default game settings work absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it. Racetracks, you got a good selection. You know, you have I honestly don't know how many, but I'm gonna guess over 20 probably. It's more than enough. You know, more than enough. And oh, this isn't very good cornering right there at all. I keep screwing up on that corner on Spa. So overall, really, there's not too much bad I can say about this game, apart from the fact that, as I said, you know, cockpit's very annoying, and the fact that there aren't really any long races. Apart from that, it's a very enjoyable, almost simulator game. That's what I came away thinking about this game. And would I recommend it? Yeah, definitely. If you're a fan of racing games, pick it up. It's fun, you know, especially if you're going to be using a gaming wheel. It just gives an entirely different experience to the whole racing thing, and it enhances it. And as you saw there, the AI aren't even too bad. They'll try and pass, they'll try and knock you off the track if it's a contact discipline. In open wheel, they try and avoid contact at all costs, which is fairly realistic, you know. There was also penalties if you cut corners and drive over the white lines. You'll you'll receive a penalty which basically makes you go excuse me, makes you go a little bit slower for a little bit. Nothing major. Also, there's no pit stops, which is something that might bug a few people if you're really a big fan of realism. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So overall, pick it up. Fun game. I had a lot of fun with it. I'll be probably playing it a little more. Maybe you could progress in the career mode, seeing what more cars there are. And definitely get it. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed my video, and I'll see you next time.